Hi. Oh.
Hello lovelies, I'm terrible at pimping my stuff, so here I am, pimping my stuff. Please like, subscribe, and most important of all, share, so that people can discover me and all the wonders that I offer. Hello lovelies, just want to briefly sort of relitigate Atheismplus. Now, Atheismplus was a push from within the then ascendant atheist movement to try and force it to conform with a certain number of progressive values, though I would say they weren't really progressive. That was how they characterized it. That it wasn't enough to just be an atheist or a skeptic or a humanist. You had to be an atheist or a skeptic or a humanist. I'll contract that to just atheist. And you had to swallow a lot of other ideological positions. Like, if you were an atheist, you had to be a feminist, no matter what the feminist movement was saying or what it stood for at that point in time. Or you had to be an atheist and you had to be an anti-racist, though the language hadn't got quite so tortured around all that at the time. So there was this split within the, as I say, then ascendant atheist movement between people who were primarily atheists because it went with their politics, in that they support abortion and they oppose people who want to constrict abortion, as just one example. And I don't think you'll find many atheists in the world who are anti-abortion, but that was what made them atheists. They opposed the evangelical right and everything they stood for, and it seemed that their atheism stemmed from their politics rather than their atheism stemming from skepticism. So the way that I characterize it is that the split was between the skeptical atheists and the politically expedient atheists. The problem is, the thing that gets in the way of them achieving their ends, even in such a progressive community anyway as atheism, is not that sexism or racism or bigotry or whatever else is rife in the atheist community. It's that it's full of skeptics. And the way that you examine things as a skeptic is to examine them, to discuss them, to ask difficult questions, to look to the science. And unfortunately, a lot of this social science simply isn't science. Right? Any discipline that accepts autoethnography as a valid form of scientific study is not a valid form of science. I'm sorry, I done wrote you a story should not count whatsoever towards academic chops. And there's a replicability crisis within social sciences and psychology. There is a methodological crisis, which people don't go into, where they reject things like peer review as being patriarchal and white and cis-normative and all the rest of it. So that's where the split is. Now, with everything that's come up with Dawkins, I see this coming up again. Most people, including this new crop of atheists, seem to be content to just scream transphobe at Dawkins without ever actually addressing the question. And the point of asking these questions, of having these debates, is to get to the truth, or to get to the best supported scientific position on these matters, and asking what is the difference between wanting to claim you're of a different race and wanting to claim you're of a different gender. That's an obvious and basic question to a lot of people. It's one that a lot of laymen would ask, and it's probably a good idea to have an answer to that, to have a thought out and evidenced position on that matter. You don't get to that without having the discussion, without having the debate. Merely pointing and shrieking doesn't accomplish anything. And you wonder why the split back then was as damaging as it was from an atheist movement that had really grown since the 9/11 attacks in particular, but had grown for a whole bunch of reasons, backlash to right-wing American politics and so on. So if we were strong in the Bush years, why weren't we strong during the Trump years? And it's because of this divide. It really took the wind out of everyone's sails. And the constant and erroneous accusations of racism, sexism, homophobia, blah blah blah, horrible things to say to people, thrown at prominent members of the atheist community or anyone who just tried to drill down into the data to find out what was actually true, that alienated that core, talented, effective, skeptical core of atheism. It really fucked them over. And the other side was not able to rise to the same prominence because of the flaws in their argumentation and in the science that they were drawing on, and so on. So do you want to be an effective movement or not? If you, like me, value progressive values, shouldn't that proceed on the basis of good evidence? Stuff that will stand to scrutiny, having answers to people's basic arguments against you. Shouldn't that be where we should put our efforts? Shouldn't that be how we spend our time? Testing these things, kicking the tires, seeing how they work? I think there's an answer to Dawkins' transgender question. I'm not going to relitigate it here, it's on my other video. Here, I just want to warn people, again, that the problem with Atheismplus was not the inherent racism, sexism, homophobia, whatever else of the atheist community. It was that there was such a paucity of science and argumentation, where censorship and authoritarianism took root in the Atheismplus movement, things that are or should be anathema to atheist skeptics and humanists as a whole. It's not very humanist to just shut people down, to deny them basic human rights like free expression, to not let them face their accuser. That's the problem. It doesn't stand to scrutiny, and it doesn't allow for discussion and debate. It doesn't allow us to get to those more robust and evidenced forms of argument that we can then employ to defend, say, trans people. But right action, as the Buddhists might say, can only proceed from correct and factual information, I think. And Atheismplus, or the pseudo-progressive wing, I guess, the woke skull wing of all of these social movements, where they've destroyed all of them, doesn't care about those things. The ends justify the means to them. And that's a problem, and it will end up dividing and destroying anything that it gets its teeth into. Whether it be the Labour movement in the UK, as Hartlepool has just shown today, whether it be atheist, humanist and skeptic activism, whether it be Star Wars fandom, comics fandom, games fandom, whatever it might be, it just destroys it all by stifling discussion and not allowing for the robust debate that gives us the genuinely effective arguments against bigotry. So let's not do this again, please. Sang. It's been called misogynistic, racist, a hate group, reactionary. It's been blamed for Trump, for keeping women out of games and technology. None of this is true. If you want the real story, then you need to buy Inside Gamergate.
Word to your mom, came to drop off.